Welcome back, snowbound North Country. Tom McLaughlin, Lovell, Maine. Gino Funicello, Jackson, New Hampshire. Fought our way through this bitter weather to get bitter. That's German, bitter. Well, we fought our way through the weather to get here today so that you could have a show tonight.
Indeed.
Let me lead off with a few things. First off, we've got, this is a top management question, only unseen by me, just a little peek. And Tom, we haven't seen this.
I have not seen it.
And we're gonna open it now, and this is from top management who support our everyday existence.
I know.
Do you think? I know that's hard. We're going to ask you that.
Yeah,
do you think the recent
Every day
Democratic victories in traditionally Republican strongholds of Alabama and southwestern Pennsylvania are a result of poor Republican candidates, strong Democratic candidates, or a vote against the president and Republicans in general? So do you think the recent victories...
Is there an all of the above category? Because that's what I think.
No,
I think all of the above.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, certainly
Poor
the poor candidates. I mean, this guy from Pennsylvania, I've seen him for the last few days. He doesn't seem like much. And I remember reading that he wasn't doing any fundraising. He was just thought he was going to be a shoe-in. So
yeah, $10 million.
He didn't... He got but he got that from the
Out
outside.
of state.
Yeah, from the Republican Party nationally, but he didn't raise money on his own much. And the Republican National Committee was mad at him for not doing it. And he just wasn't. He seemed like he set off my BS alarm. He seemed like a typical politician, whereas the other guy was he was a good candidate. I mean, he was sharp.
Well, he's pro life.
Well, he said he's personally pro-life, which even Ted Kennedy said that. But and then he'd vote for every abortion bill that he could.
Well, I know.
So that's like all Democrats do.
Well, anyway, I think that after watching Trump's speech in southwestern Pennsylvania on I think it was Saturday night. He went on for an hour and 70 minutes, or an hour and 45. No, an hour and 45 minutes. He went on and on and on and on. I thought, "Are you still running for president? What are you doing?" He was there to be. He was basically there to help the candidate. He spoke for at least 10 or 15 minutes. Never mentioned the candidate's name, and then went on to this whole thing about, Hillary Clinton and this Barbara, whatever her name is from California, Nancy from California, the speaker. Pelosi. He went on about all this national stuff. And he had, the other guy was leading in the polls there. Lamb was leading in the recent polls at that point, was leading by 4 and 5 and 6 points.
Yes, I saw that.
And I thought, why are you doing this? You're killing the guy. You're killing your own candidate by sounding so bizarre. I like to watch the people that are in the camera, and there was a lot of times they weren't applauding, they weren't, they were listening to, and it was the same old. It's like, I don't know, going to a Woody Allen movie. It's the same thing over and over again, and this is what Trump's becoming. And I think, personally, the candidates were valid. That candidate, he's pretty well liked there. That guy that ran for the Republicans, but in that area. Trump won the area by 20.
He wasn't an incumbent, though, was it?
I don't think so.
The incumbent had to resign from some kind of scandal, but I don't know what it was.
Yeah. But it's been won by the Republicans for the last 25 years, or 15 years.
Yeah.
I thought it was 94. But anyway, been quite a while. So seven votes there. Trump won that by 20-something points when he ran that district.
Yeah.
It's a hard-working
Romney
district.
before that by 17.
Yeah, so I think that's really going to hurt the Republicans in the elections in November. Really going to hurt them if Trump keeps up this. I'm the one that can make things change, and I'm the one that can do it. And I'm the one.
Well, I would agree with you that
it's going to hurt them.
One of the criteria that the original question cited was he's a good candidate, this guy Lamb. He spoke well. I saw him shaking hands, pressing the flesh, and he seemed to interact well with people. He was he's
not extreme liberal.
He was a Marine officer. He had an Ivy League education. He was young. He said, "I'm personally pro-life," which really doesn't mean anything if you're a Democrat.
Well, at least he said it.
Yeah.
Pro Second Amendment. He didn't make a big deal about.
Right.
But
He said he
against
was that.
automatic weapons, against the which is okay.
A few other things. Oh, he said he's a union supporter. He supported Trump's tariffs. So he pretty much pulled those away.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a steel town. That's outside of Pittsburgh.
Yeah. You don't want to say you're in favor of
But so
Chinese steel.
he really sounded like many Republicans, and so it's hard to put a gauge on this.
That's been a centerpiece. This is what really bugs me about the Republicans right now. That was a centerpiece of every Republican administration.
What was?
Was the tariffs. Was, allowing that to float.
Free trade, no tariffs.
Free trade, no major tariffs, stuff like that. But you know what, Trump, he's killing the Republican Party. If you have any love for the Republican Party, he was at a meeting either with the Prime Minister of Canada yesterday, the day before, recently, and in the meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister, he said to him that there was a vast disparity in the balance deficit between what we, sell in back and forth.
Yeah.
And he lied. It was a total damn lie. Now what happens?
Was he a lie or was he
lied.
mistaken?
And he admitted it at a conference he had with some people.
He said that we have a trade deficit.
Imbalance. And it's not true. There was
we have a trade surplus.
We have a trade surplus, $16 billion, but he said it was a $16 billion deficit.
Yeah.
And it's not true. And when he was talking to a bunch of people a couple of nights later, he said, I lied.
He said that?
Good.
Those were his words?
I lied.
I lied?
It wasn't true. I lied. And I mean,
Why
that's
would
the
he
kind
say
of
that?
president of the United States we've got. I am really frightened for this democracy. I really am. And I'm not
No, I
just saying
seldom watch his speeches or watch him if he's doing a news. I wait until I see what he said and look at snippets or read snippets mostly. So I don't really know how he's coming across. But what it said was that he was wrong about the trade surplus or trade deficit
with Canada.
And he's right in the middle of NAFTA negotiations, I know. So Mexico and Canada. So if he's doing those negotiations, he should be up on the statistics.
He doesn't study anything. That's the point. He's not a reader. He doesn't like to get this information. We can say we want about Clinton, George Bush, or Obama. They're up on this stuff. They were involved. They read. They learned. They listened. He doesn't listen. He's his own captain of his own ship. And the problem is, when you deal with these people and they find out you've lied to them about one thing, your wife goes out and tells you she spent $18 for a rug and you find out she spent $4,000. It makes a difference. You start to say, I'm not quite sure if I believe everything you tell me. This guy, he just can't tell the truth. And I don't know what it's all about. I don't know when.
I think he shoots from the lip. But I think he's bright enough to understand that there are people fact checking everything he says.
Absolutely.
And that if he says something that's not true or not the case, then he's going to be called on it.
Yeah.
So I think he just doesn't really consider that. He stays in the moment. He just says what next thought comes in, and it rolls right off of his tongue.
I really hate to say this about a president. I don't think he cares about the future of the United States. I really don't. It's all about him. It's all about his family. It's all about how much money they can make and the business deals and all that. They're making deals right now all around the world. I pick up these snippets, and they're not from left-wing stations. These are things like the son-in-law is working on a big deal in New Jersey where they actually canceled some kind of a train run that was going to be in one particular area, and they changed the direction of it to an area where they're doing a big development that would help them. It's that kind of stuff. It's all this little insidious stuff that's going on behind the scenes that you pick up little bits on. Now what he does is, look what he did to Tillerson. There's an example. I wasn't too crazy about Tillerson, big oil man. I mean, at least he has some savoir-faire about him.
Our producer wants us to address that. Tillerson.
Oh, really? Was that part of the? Yeah, okay.
In an email.
You want to start it? Because I'm going to.
Oh, what the reason? Tillerson. Why was he fired? And was that? And clearly, he and Trump don't look at the world the same way. And the Secretary of State, of course, is our ambassador to the world.
Sure.
So Tillerson I liked that he came from a non-governmental background.
CEO of Exxon.
Yeah, so he would have to have some practical business experience, and Trump also comes from a business background, and that was a good thing. But Tillerson, his views were different, and specifically,
Yes.
they were. He wanted to stay with the Paris Climate Accord, and Trump wanted out, and he did get us out. He didn't want to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and Trump did. He tried to avoid confrontation with North Korea. I didn't like Trump's rhetoric, of the Rocket Man and the little fat kid and whatever else he was doing. And then also, more than that too, Iran, the Iran treaty, that's big. I mean, he wanted to stay in the Iran treaty, and Trump wanted out. So there are a few other items, but those I think are the biggest ones. And I mean, he was there for almost a year and a half. That's remarkable. I mean, it's good to have someone who doesn't agree with you and can articulate the case for the other side. Every leader needs that. Get a sharp person or group of people to argue one way, great, and then some more sharp people to argue in the other way, and then you have to come up with the decision. But at least you have evidence, and you have to find some kind of position. Now, I like to think that he does that. He seems to. He has had these open cabinet meetings and meetings with Congress.
Have you seen any of them?
I have, and I've been impressed with them. I think they're unprecedented. To let media in on substantive negotiations, whether it was DACA or whether it was, I forget the other subjects that were around. And I think he did a good job.
But then he changed what he said, and that's the problem.
That happens all the time.
Yeah, but no,
he has to sign a bill, and he says, I think I'll go for that. But then he changes his mind about, well, it was going to be, you vote for wall funding, and I'll vote for DACA, or I'll approve, DACA. Right. But then chain migration wasn't going to be part of DACA. So that killed the deal. Now, did the Democrats pull that? Well, you got to have chain migration. These people, or I don't know, but we have no deal.
Chain migration is a family, lives here because they've been here since they were kids or whatever. They've lived here, and now they want to bring their mother or their father over or something like that later.
That's what Trump would have allowed. Yeah. He would have allowed immediate family.
Immediate family,
but no cousins, no aunts, no uncles,
we get
grandparents,
lost in the weeds.
And so forth.
Look what he did, though.
Chain migration is where we get most of our immigrants.
Trump,
not from the original one, from this chain migration.
I didn't like Tillerson personally, but because of what he was doing. He was brought in to hollow out the State Department. We've got at least 30, 40, 50 nations right now in this world where we do not have an ambassador, okay? That may not mean for anything, but if you're stuck in a foreign country and you can't get out because somebody stole your passport, it's nice to have an ambassador. Because otherwise, you might be living in Zimbabwe forever.
Well, having an ambassador or not having an ambassador isn't the same as not having an embassy or a consulate. And that's where you go. You're not going to talk to the ambassador about your lost passport. You're going to talk to the staff.
What you care about.
And most of the staff is made up of CIA agents anyway.
Okay, so they fire all. They don't bring any ambassadors. We don't even have an ambassador to South Korea. Now, you must admit, that's kind of a hot flash point right now, I would think.
Doesn't seem to be hurting our negotiations, does it?
It's going to hurt us when there's a critical situation that might come up. I mean, you can't predict what's going to happen. I think what's happening is...
You don't think the whole thing is a critical situation?
I think what I read the other day about China in deep with Iran building access railroads across China to get to Iran. They're building up this strong position in that area. Now, Trump's taken the side of Israel because it's easy. It's easy. They're the biggest donors in America. They give them whatever they want. They've always been mollycoddled by the United States. They've got an ambassador who was an American citizen that comes here and tells them what they want. Fine, they go along with that. But he's putting all his eggs in that one big basket. Now, Tillerson is a very smart man. He knows about the world more than Mr. Trump will ever know, okay? Mr. Trump is as dumb as a box of rocks. You know it. I know it.
I don't know it.
The American public is seeing.
You keep saying so.
Let's get back to the numbers of people. Okay. You don't think, I know, if Obama had been making these moves in the White House that Mr. Trump has been making for a year, you guys on the right would have been hanging from the ceiling with your claws out. This guy has got so many key people in his White House. Now what has he done? He fires Cohen, gets rid of Cohen. Very bright man. Former head of what's that big, one of the big banks.
Goldman Sachs.
Goldman Sachs. Huge guy, probably making, $800 million a year with bonus or something.
Yeah, so now he's down to 200,000.
Now he's going to tell Cohen, you're wrong. You're wrong. Tillerson,
he was against
they're
tariffs.
all wrong.
He was against tariffs.
Exactly,
Cohen
but he was right.
And
he
so
was right because
Cohen wanted out. He said, I don't see how I can be here
Absolutely.
if you're going to go with these tariffs. And so, okay,
Donald
then
Trump
leave.
doesn't know.
So now he's got Larry Kudlow.
Donald Trump didn't know. He thought he was talking about China with this trade imbalance, on steel and aluminum. It's Canada and Mexico that are the top two suppliers of aluminum and steel to the United States.
Canada, anyway, I don't know about
Just
Mexico.
because he was buying Chinese steel to build his buildings for the last 30 years doesn't mean he doesn't know.
A lot of Chinese steel comes in through other countries.
I don't care where it comes. The point is, Donald Trump is not a Republican. He's not a Democrat. He's a Putin type, a Putin type.
I'd like to change the subject.
We're
Hillary
going to
Clinton.
do a little more on this, on the people that have left. You must admit.
Well, hang on a minute.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to bring up
All right.
a different subject.
All right.
Hillary.
Oh, back to Hillary.
She's
the former.
in India. Earlier this week.
I saw part of the speech.
Yeah, here's what she said. She said, again, excuses why she lost. It had nothing to do with me. No, nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Or that I was a lousy candidate, or that I didn't work
whatever.
hard enough, or any of that. It was because people that voted against her from states that don't like black people getting rights,
That's probably true.
and they don't like women getting jobs.
That's probably true.
And then earlier she said, white women voted against me. Trump won more
That's true.
white women votes than I did because they did what their husbands and their bosses told them to do.
That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
ridiculous. Can you
So,
get into-
I mean, this is only the latest two reasons, or excuses for her having lost,
Yeah.
which she's been making for about the last year and a half. And she even wrote a book about it, which isn't doing well. But the woman cannot just acknowledge that I was a lousy candidate.
Which she could have said, rather than all that, bull, which is bull. She could have said, I think the Russians were deeply involved in trying to get me to lose. That's one thing that's probably going to come out, that's pretty sure. She could say that. She could also say, I won by 3.5 million votes. But because of our archaic system,
says that over and over.
our archaic system that allows states like Montana and North Dakota and Idaho and Iowa to decide, and Utah, and to decide an election in the United States in the 21st century, they're archaic.
We have a constitution that we have to go by, Gino, whether you
I
like
know,
it
they
or
should
not.
take that part
right?
out and burn
We
it.
have-
You know.
No,
This-
that, Gino, if you want to change that, it has to be done by Article 5 in the
Okay.
Constitution. It has to go by the amendment process,
I know
which
it does.
Democrats know
It'll never happen.
It'll never happen,
happen.
and so you just have
People
to live
like
with
this.
it.
People
You
like
just
this
have to
ridiculous
live
mess
with
we
it.
got. Someone wins an election by 3.5 million
Another problem
votes.
that the Democrats have, which is Louis Farrakhan.
Oh my God! You bring him in. He's almost dead.
Gino.
The man's on oxygen.
There was a photograph with Barack Obama
my God.
and Louis Farrakhan
Yes.
smiling in the Congressional Black Caucus meeting before he ran for president when he was a senator from Illinois. And then the other guy, the photographer who worked for the Congressional Black Caucus, all the people in the caucus said, "Well, we better, would you please deep six that photograph because that's going to hurt Senator Obama as he runs for president."
It obviously hurt him.
Well, because
really
nobody
bad.
saw it. It was deep six. No, it
I
didn't
see.
emerge
I
until
see.
about a month ago. Then all of a sudden, there it is. Calypso Louis and Barack Obama,
can't believe-
buddies, all smiling. There we go. And also, the three leaders of the Women's March that took place the day after Trump's inaugural, the Pussy
Yeah.
Hat March. They're all buddies of Louis Farrakhan as well.
Oh, my
As well
God.
as the vice chairman of the Democrat Party, Keith Ellison, who used to belong to the Nation of Islam before he got elected congressman from Minnesota. But then he said, no, I don't have anything to do with Louis anymore, and that's in my past, and he played it down and all that. But now all of a sudden he's had a couple of dinners with Louis Farrakhan.
Okay, all right. Let's come back to the reality.
And then we
today.
have, of course, this congresswoman. What's her name? From Los Angeles, the one that
the one he said was a half an
45.
IQ or something.
Oh gosh,
I don't know her name. Yeah,
obnoxious, ugly woman. I can't think of her name.
Just because she's ugly doesn't make her.
And she's a good buddy of Louis Farrakhan, and so Louis Farrakhan and the Democrats are pretty close together.
Oh please,
very close together. Now how do you explain that, Mr. Democrat?
All right, let me explain something to you. Mr. Louis Farrakhan was making a lot of money with the United States government, okay? He was making money during Reagan's administration. You can check this out. George Herbert Walker Bush, the Clinton, and probably...
Making money how?
Making money how? Guarding, working in the ghettos, in the high-rises owned by the government, the HUD program.
His church, the Nation of Islam, as it's called.
He was the head of the policing agencies that went in and kept things cool, okay? So all of our governments have been paying that schmuck for the last 30 years. So don't blame it on the Democrats. They all loved him because he was performing
making
a
programs
service.
having to do with with young men.
Young men in the ghettos, and it obviously worked.
It's true, he did.
He made a fortune.
Ever since the days of Malcolm X, that's been true.
And I think maybe George W. Bush, or maybe even Obama, they took him off that. He's not making that kind of money anymore, so he wasn't a very happy camper. You can't say enough bad about Louis Farrakhan, okay? His Million Man March was a joke. It's a joke. He's a joke. He's always been a joke. The guy that founded it...
Not to the Democrats. They seem to like the guy.
The guy that founded it was a madman. He was sort of like Joe Smith and the Mormons. But getting back to reality, does that really have anything to do with what we're doing in the United States right now? I mean, we can talk all we want about George Bush and Cheney.
Yeah, it has something to do with it.
Why?
That the Democrat Party is soft on Islam. They won't tolerate any criticism of Islam. They won't. They believe in sending the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE, is a terrorist organization. They have funneled money. They've raised money for Hamas. Okay. Hamas, which wants death to America and death to Israel, wants to kill every Jew in Israel. And CARE supports them. And CARE has
CARE
many people within
the
Obama. CAIR, the Council of American American Islamic Relations, CAIR.
Okay.
There are many other groups. There's the Muslim Students Association, which has chapters in almost every college and university.
What do you want to do? Ban Muslims?
Wait
a minute.
I don't want to ban them.
Yeah, but what
I
you sound
want to
like
point out that they are supporting terrorist organizations, including Hamas and Hezbollah.
You mean individuals within those groups and the entire group just promulgating this hatred for Israel?
They are the Muslim Students Association, the Council on American Islamic Association, the IS. There are about 6 or 7 large national organizations which fundraise and send money to
various groups.
Yes, and even if you say, like, I go down Forest Avenue in Portland, on my way to South Portland every week, and there are many halal markets, HALAL, which is like halal for Muslims is like kosher for Jews. You know, it's a certain food prepared certain ways.
And so they're all crazy. But
okay, well, part of halal is to send money to various Islamic organizations which fund terrorism. So a portion of the money, every dollar that's spent in those supermarkets, some of which, by the way, are under, the guys are under arrest for extorting money from the federal government, stealing money from food stamp programs, and laundering money and tax evasion and so forth, which is endemic across the country.
Let's all get together and hate the Muslims.
So Louis Farrakhan exemplifies this. He represents Islam in the United States. Yeah, he's despicable. Yeah, he's a black racist. Yeah, he says that whites are devils. and so forth. And that's why he killed Malcolm X.
Let's go back
because
to
Malcolm X said, no, not all whites are devils.
Oh,
Got to get
my
rid of that
God.
guy. Blah, 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 blah. And Farrakhan
Malcolm
was
X
behind
was
killing
killed
him.
in 1965.
You look at the connection between Louis
50
Farrakhan. Just
Yeah.
Google Malcolm X, Louis Farrakhan. You'll come across it, Gino.
I know that he bowed out of that group. That's why they killed him. But the point is, that's a long time
He
ago.
didn't bow out of the group. What
he
he did
he
was
splintered away from them.
what he did was he said that not all whites are devils. I've been to Mecca. I've seen white people who are not devils.
And what happened to him for it?
And he got shot
He was
by
gunned
Louis
down.
Farrakhan and the other
He was
Nation of
gunned
Islam thugs.
Right. Which
That's
has
what
never been.
happened.
I don't know if it was ever
But he's
proven.
still,
I think it might have been.
you know, the Democrats may say, oh, if they're forced to, they'll say, well, I don't agree with his anti-Semitic policies. But how about his white racist his black
We
racist
get a president
policies
that
against
is
whites?
anti-Semitic. Bannon's anti-Semitic. He was his partner in crime. Let's get to Bannon for a minute because I don't want to forget this. This is interesting. Bannon went to speak in France this week. Remember Bannon?
I do.
He was in the White House. Breitbart guy. Great American.
Get to your point.
Who thinks Trump's a nitwit, by the way. You know that. He went to France and he's talking to that woman's group. What was her name?
Le Pen.
Le Pen.
Marine Le Pen.
La Pen de Matante. I remember that from French. I was La Plume. But anyway, he goes and he speaks, and he tells these people with this big group, it's a racist, fascist group. You know what I'm talking about, National French Party of something or other. And he goes on and tells them, there's nothing to be ashamed of, and I'm paraphrasing, or being racist or just hating all these people. There's nothing to be ashamed of because you're winning. You're winning, they're losing.
Now, you're quoting someone?
Yeah.
Who?
Bannon.
Bannon said
Bannon in France.
There's nothing wrong with
talking,
being, he said there's nothing wrong with being racist.
Being racist.
Come on.
Being called a racist. That's what
Well, that's a little different.
Well, okay.
That's a little
but
different.
The reason they're being called a racist is, because they are.
Gino.
They hate Muslims. They hate
I don't know if
immigrants.
it's still in the hundreds or possibly in the thousands of times that I've been called a racist in print and
That's
to my
different.
face. Why is it different?
It's different. This
Why?
man is definitely a racist.
Because I'm not a racist, and yet I'm called a racist.
Should we go on to good news and bad news? Because I
You don't
think
like
that's-
the subject, do you?
No, I don't like that. I don't like him because he's
racism
working.
is like Democrat Tourette syndrome.
He's
They just say,
antithetical to the
racist. As soon
Why
as you start to say something that Democrats
Why
disagree
did
with,
Bannon- let's
then
get
you're a
on Bannon.
racist,
Why
or
did
you're a
Bannon-
homophobe, or you're a misogynist,
What does Bannon
or you're
talk
a
about?
fascist,
Wait
or
a
you're a
minute,
Nazi.
Let me finish this sentence. Why does Bannon always talk about the deep state?
Because the deep state,
the deep state is what?
exists.
What is it, Tom? Will you tell me what
Okay,
the deep state is?
Let me give you some names.
No, not
Right.
names. I don't want what you read on Breitbart. I want what you think
Gino,
about
I
it.
want to give you specifics. I'm
what,
not
like
going to
Louis
talk in
Farrakhan?
generalities.
Oh, okay, you're going to give
I
us
would
specific.
say that it was the upper levels of the CIA when John Brennan was
Oh,
its
my
director.
God, yeah.
I would say that it's the upper levels of the FBI when James Comey was
I
its
see.
director. I would say that national security when James Clapper was its
I see.
director.
So they're all.
I would say that it's the National Security Administration when Susan Rice was
I see.
running
so,
it.
wait a minute, just
I would
stop for a
say
second.
those specific
What are they trying to accomplish in that deal? What are
You're
they
gonna
doing?
let me answer your question.
No, because
you
I
brought
wanna
this
know.
up.
I want to know.
But you don't like what I'm saying.
you
When I
won't-
start to give you
look it,
specifics, you
You
interrupt
throw out
me.
a bunch of names.
You
that
don't
are
like
just,
what I have to say.
Those
Facts.
names are always presented every night of the week by Fox News.
Gino,
I'm talking about
now
real
you're
news.
using logical fallacies. You're trying to talk over me
No.
because you don't. You asked a question and I'm answering it.
I want to know what they've done
Here's
to
what
make
they've
that
done.
a deep state.
Here is what they've done. They set up this guy Carter, called him an
All of these
agent.
people?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, my
I could
God.
go on. I could name more. If you didn't interrupt me, I'd have named
Go ahead,
several more.
Name all these names.
I'm not going to tell you now what they did. What they did was they weaponized the federal government, and the Department of Justice is also part of that under Loretta Lynch. And what they did was they took this poor Carter guy, and then they made him out to be an enemy agent, and then they took
Who is
Christopher Steele's dossier,
back
which
to
has not been verified. Nothing has
hasn't.
been verified. And
Okay.
still to date, and even though it's been around for over a year publicly, nothing's been verified.
Oh, yeah?
Completely unverified.
That isn't what I've heard.
They
but
used
anyway,
it to get a FISA warrant without saying that it was paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democrat National Party. They got a FISA warrant to wiretap Carter and everybody Carter has been in contact with. What most people don't realize is that they used that warrant, which was a Title II or Title I warrant, which meant that they could wiretap the entire Trump Tower server and anybody connected with it, which they did. And then Susan Rice and Ben Rhodes in the White House, and another national security guy, right-hand man to President Obama, and the UN ambassador, what's her name, that redheaded woman, Samantha Power, and others, then unmasked hundreds each of these people who were surveilled, and then leaked information to the compliant media to set up this whole Russia collusion BS,
Oh, okay.
which is
That's
what
where
it
you're going. I
is.
know that's where you're going. Okay, it's all,
It's what it
it's
is.
all BS. So you've been saying that.
That
think
is the deep
you've
state,
been consistent.
Gino, and
You've
that's
been-
what the deep state
Okay.
does.
All that deep state, most of those people you mentioned in the deep state, except for Susan Rice and some of those Democrats that work with Obama, they're all Republicans. Okay? So
Brennan
what
voted
you're
for the
basically
communist
saying,
candidate in the
I don't care.
1976 election.
I don't
Did
care
you know
who he
that?
voted for. No,
He's not a
that's-
Republican.
that's 50 years ago, Tom. You want to arrest someone now because
Any
they
other
read-
questions about
You
the
know what
deep
that's
state
like?
and what
That's
they do?
McCarthyism. That's McCarthyism because when these guys were making films in the 40s and 50s, because they bought the Daily Worker in 1936, they were pinned down as being communist spies. Now that's true. And none of them worked again for a long, long time in the industry because they were blackballed. What you and your kind are doing, you're blackballing people on the slightest bit of information.
I am, huh?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think these people are that type. Other than, you can say, I know your guy there, Bannon, is that type. He says he's deep state. We've got a deep state. What the hell is he talking about? He goes over and tells these fascists in France that they're marvelous and racist and they're marvelous. And Trump's doing the same damn thing. Anyway, getting back to good news and bad news, we got to get something besides this crap. And I think
bring up some uncomfortable
no,
subject.
no, it
and
isn't.
You flip
no,
out.
no, it isn't.
That's what
And
happens.
no, it
You
isn't
start talking
uncomfortable.
over me. I start answering the question you asked me, and then you start talking over me because
But
you don't like to hear the answer to
You
your
come out
question.
with a dozen names that you say are bad people.
I deal in specifics.
No,
I deal in
those
specific
aren't-
people and specific actions. I name names. I name actions.
Okay, Carter-
You talk in generalities.
Let me
okay?
just get a word in. Carter went to Russia in 2013, right?
What?
That guy Carter, Carter Page,
Yes.
that you're talking about,
Yes.
that worked for Trump, was on their campaign committee. Went to.
He was an advisor to the Trump campaign.
Went to Russia
temporarily
in
unpaid.
2013. Went to Russia. He was there, met with certain Russians.
Yes, not the ones that Christopher Steele said he met with. He didn't meet with those
Well,
Russians.
I understand
That's
that.
been debunked.
A lot of the stuff that Christopher Steele had in that dossier came from Eastern European agencies.
who were
and
paid.
That whole dossier started because a Republican group was trying to find information
Wrong.
on Clinton. Oh, it's wrong. Everything on the other
information
side is
is
wrong.
wrong.
Okay, all right.
No, it didn't happen that way, Gino.
Carter Page was being followed around under FISA because he was dealing with the Russians, okay? Now, anybody else that talked to him during that period, meeting with Russians, was also picked up. That's how FISA warrants work.
Yeah,
I'm
but
sorry,
not the
that's
particular FISA warrant that James Comey
All right.
that got from the FISA judge on October 21st, 2016.
Why
Not that one.
Why do you think Donald Trump asked Comey to not go after Flynn?
What?
When Trump called Comey in a couple of times
Yeah.
and told him to give up on Flynn, not to bother him. Why do you think he did that?
I think he said, "Why don't you go easy on this guy?"
Yeah, go easy on
Something
him.
like
Why?
that, right?
Why would he do that?
Because he liked him.
Oh, because he liked him. He hardly knew the guy. He met him. He hired
What do you
him.
mean he hardly knew the
hired
guy?
him after Obama said, "Stay away from him. The man's dangerous." Do you know that?
that's when he officially appointed him during the transition between the election and the inauguration.
But
before that, he liked Flynn because Flynn was very much against the Iran treaty.
Lock her up.
Gino, I'm answering your question. You asked me, why do I think
Trump
said that to Comey? And you claimed then that Obama warned him not to hire him.
Yes.
Well, like Obama's going to,
during the
Trump is not going
transition.
to take advice from Obama. He liked Flynn before the election even because Flynn was working for Obama at the time, and he was very much against this disastrous Iran nuclear treaty.
Oh my God.
Flynn spoke against it, and that's why Obama got rid of him.
Okay.
And that's why Trump liked him.
He also wanted Trump not
also
to hire
one
him.
of the reasons he got rid of Tillerson, because Tillerson liked the treaty too.
Flynn was meeting with the Russians too. He was talking with them the day of the
He was a national
inauguration.
security designee.
Yeah.
Of course he's going to talk to the
He had
Russians.
a lot of plans in the background with the Russians,
Gino,
didn't he?
what's wrong with the future national security advisor? He had already been appointed. He hadn't taken office yet because it was transition.
Let me give you one
and
more
he talked
question.
to the Russians.
I like to question you.
What's wrong with that?
Why did he plead guilty?
Gino.
Why did he plead guilty?
There's nothing wrong with talking to the Russians when you're the national security advisor designee.
I understand that.
You'd be negligent if you did not.
Why did he plead guilty?
He pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI. That's an interesting question.
Oh, now he
That
didn't
is
lie.
a very interesting question, and it came up in our last show also. He did plead guilty to a federal judge who was also a FISA judge.
Oh, my God.
And this FISA judge then, he accepted the guilty plea from Flynn, and then when it came time for sentencing Flynn, he said, I recuse myself.
Yeah, because
very interesting that he recused himself.
Well, that was good.
There's a lot going on, Gino.
Oh, I see.
In
It's
this
all
whole
that
FISA investigation that has yet to meet the eye. There are some of the sources that I read, and I know you don't,
I can't
indicate that some of the people whose names I mentioned, well, mostly Peter Strzok and his Lisa Page. And McCabe, the assistant director of the FBI,
that's nice.
They have turned state's evidence, and that they are giving information to the Inspector General at the DOJ, Michael Horowitz, whose report is due out very soon. It's going to be very interesting.
And you'll believe
and then
every
when
word
a
of it.
grand jury is appointed with subpoena power to start putting out indictments, some of these people are going to be indicted that are your heroes. I know are crooked.
Look, they're not my heroes. All I'm saying is there is enough information right now. When this guy brings his charges, when Mueller brings his charges against this
He already
gang,
has been bringing charges.
working his way up the ladder, okay?
You say so.
Manafort, how's Manafort's travel plans for the next year? He was re-indicted last week.
Manafort was indicted, but it had nothing to do with Russian collusion,
Oh,
did it?
of course not.
Nothing to do with the Trump administration, did it?
No, not at all.
None of these indictments have had anything to do with the Trump administration. Except, I don't know what the Flynn indictment had to lying to the FBI. It looks like Flynn is going to withdraw his guilty plea.
Oh yeah, who withdraws guilty plea? He's
That's
already been
interesting.
working.
It's going to be hard to do, but it looks like that's what's happening. You never heard of that, did you?
No,
He's been working
with Mueller for the last
There's
year.
a new federal judge now that's in charge of the Flynn case. After that FISA court judge recused himself from the sentencing, the new judge appointed in the case is a guy named Emmett Sullivan, who was an Obama appointee, and he's a black man.
You know, I see doing this all the time.
And he has said to Mueller, you have to turn over evidence that you have that would exonerate Flynn from these charges. Mueller wasn't going to turn over that evidence, but this federal judge, Emmett Sullivan, ordered him to do so.
Okay.
And then there's a lot going on behind the scenes here, Gino.
They're supposed to do that anyway. That's part of the law.
Well, he wasn't doing it.
No, we'll see.
Now, until ordered by a judge to do it. And now he's doing it.
The funny thing about all this,
and Flynn still hasn't been sentenced.
Mr. Trump has lost innumerable number of people in his White House. I mean, that doesn't even give you, on the right, a pause. No one pauses when you lose secretaries of state. You fired this and that. You fired. And he doesn't even do it himself.
And there's more about to happen.
What a classless human being.
He's about to let go of the guy in charge of the VA.
He hires.
He might
Can
be
I finish?
letting go Flynn.
He hires Tillerson.
You don't like being interrupted.
No,
do
I
you?
don't.
No.
He hires Tillerson.
Keep in mind,
The guy
don't
is
stop
working.
interrupting
The
me.
guy is working over in Africa. Okay,
What guy?
Tillerson. He's flying back. He gets home. He doesn't even know he's been fired. They got a guy now, this
That's embarrassing.
federal, the FBI agent there, who they're going to take his pension away. I
McCabe.
mean, there is such vindictiveness in this man, okay, who has not said a bad word about his Bobo there in Russia.
Wait a minute. Which man?
Trump hasn't said a bad word about Putin, hasn't said a bad word about the guy in Turkey, hasn't said a bad word about anybody, but he's all over the rest of our alliances. I can't understand it, and I can't understand why you people keep supporting this man who has absolutely been caught lying 2,000 times since he became president, and you keep supporting him. Can you imagine if this was Obama, what you'd be doing? You thought he said there were 57 states. He was talking about ketchup, and you talked about it 20 times.
I like policies. I judge when I vote for somebody.
God.
I vote for somebody because of their platform, because of the positions on the issue.
Platforms mean nothing. You know that.
Well, Donald Trump has come through, like it or not, and you clearly don't, with whatever he promised in the campaign, he's doing.
Oh, yeah.
He's doing
I know
including
that.
these tariffs. Whether the tariffs are
He's
a good
doing it
idea
right.
or not, I don't know. But obviously, this guy Michael Cohen, didn't think they were a good idea.
He was a dummy. Cohen was a dummy. He was only the head of Morgan Stanley or something. I want a dummy.
Larry
that man.
Kudlow, who also, I read an article shortly after Trump announced that he wanted to do these tariffs by Larry Kudlow, and Larry Kudlow criticized him too. So Trump said, well, I need a guy in there that's going to tell me, some things that I don't agree with, but he's going to point out, make the case for the other side. And I think Trump does allow that to happen. And he doesn't always take their advice. He does what, you're right, he does what he thinks ought to be done.
But he doesn't know.
That's what a leader does. You claim he doesn't know.
He doesn't know. He's appointing.
I
Look,
think so far, I like most of what he's doing, but with one
you like his
glaring
authoritarian
exception.
bent? Do you like the fact that he
that's
thought
too
that...
vague for me to
What do
even
you mean
touch,
vague?
okay? It's
the
vague.
president of China takes up president for life, decides to be president for life, and our idiot president says, that's not a bad
Are you
idea.
talking about China?
Yeah, of course. Trump says, I was just joking. He's not joking. He's an authoritarian fool. Otherwise, how do you get rid of a guy like Tillerson that way? The man is a quality class guy.
It wasn't nice to do
He
what
got
he
Cohen
did.
the same way.
No, he didn't.
He got rid of Comey the same way.
Cohen doesn't leave until the 31st.
Yeah, Comey was out on the West Coast with a bunch of FBI agents, and he had his manservant go to the office and leave a note saying, "You're all done."
It's clear that you have a visceral hatred for President Trump.
I do,
It
because
comes
I think
through
he's a
every
danger to
week,
this-
and you just start spitting fire
I think
whenever
he's
his
got-
name
I
comes
think
up.
he's a
You
danger
get out
to-
of control.
I think he's a danger.
I think that you have blinders about everything else because you hate the man.
Listen, when I watch various things, okay, on all of the channels, and I see our boy Trump firing people at will for nothing. Look at the people that are leaving. The girl that was working with him for 7 years, Hope Hicks, she had to leave. They're all lying for him, and they're going to be all going to jail very soon, and they know it.
Okay, that's what you say.
I know it.
Okay.
Oh, my
well, I
God,
claim
this
that
guy
there
is...
are going to be some other indictments.
What do you think is
Here's
going to happen
I'm going
to
to
the-
change the subject now.
Oh,
I'm going to
God.
go over to.
Can we
the
do good
Attorney
news,
General.
bad news?
I don't know how much time we
I
have.
don't know. Oh, we got time.
All right.
Let's do it. I'm supposed to be moderating this week, I paid for this
All
phone.
you did, I asked you to open the show, which you did. Thank you.
Good news.
And then it's been hard to
Give
keep
me
you
good
quiet
news.
ever since.
Give me good news.
You want good news?
Yeah. And bad news.
Good news is that Trump will talk face to face with Kim Jong-il.
Bet against it.
I think that's a wonderful idea. That's very good news, and I think it's a possible breakthrough. It doesn't mean anything's going to come of it, but I think talking face to face is a good thing. My bad news is that
Well, that was good news. Okay.
Senator Pocahontas Warren won't take a DNA test to prove that she's an Indian. I watched her being interviewed on Meet the Press and also Fox News last Sunday morning, and she was asked the question on both shows, and she said, "Well, I don't want to destroy the legacy of my mommy, my mother, and my daddy, who told the story about how his parents didn't want him marrying my mummy because she was part Indian and then so forth. But then he loved her so much because she was so beautiful. And it had nothing to do with whether she's going to take a DNA or not. But she just
Why don't-
refuses.
why
If she
would-
wants to run for president, this issue is going to dog her.
Why
Thank
would
you, Harry
anybody?
Carr, for
she
bringing
won't
it
run.
up.
Why would anybody care besides the right wing? Here, what about
I would
losers?
care
Let's
because
have.
my wife did. My wife is part Indian. She has the DNA and the pedigree to prove it. And she got into a graduate program at the University of Maine.
Based on the fact that she's an Indian.
Based on the fact, well, I think I don't know if it was based on that, but she did put it on the application that she's part Abenaki.
Okay,
And,
can we-
and then she ended up into the program. It was a very selective program, and I don't know, but it's possible.
Give me your losers this
But
week. will
she
you?
can prove it. But,
Give me your losers.
but
and winners.
Elizabeth Warren got into 2 law
Oh, my
schools and
God.
a professorship because and is touted in the magazine as being a minority when she isn't. She lied.
Yeah, 1/32 or something. Okay.
No, she isn't.
Same
She
thing
isn't.
worked in Nazi
She
Germany.
isn't.
If you're 1/32 Jewish, you were killed. Losers and winners. Come on, we got to move this
That
along.
was, she's my.
Yeah.
That's the bad news. My winner is Christian Saucier.
Who?
I don't know if you heard of him.
No.
He was on a nuclear submarine, and he took out his little iPhone because he wanted to show his friends where he worked, and he took some pictures of the nuclear submarine.
He's in
Because
trouble.
it was confidential information, it was classified information, he was brought up on felony charges. He was put into a into the slammer for a year. He lost all of his service. He was ineligible for a pension. He's got a felony on his record, a dishonorable discharge.
Yeah.
All of this took place during the time that Hillary Clinton was not taking
I
care
see.
of classified information and
Okay,
highly
that's
confidential.
your
And
winner?
now, see, he's starting to wrap because you're making a point
No,
that
because
you
we're
don't
running
like.
out of time. I haven't even had a chance
No,
to speak
Gino,
about it.
this is your pattern, okay? I bring up things that are
a minute,
actual,
was it
actual
against the law?
circumstances.
Hold on a
and
second,
Hillary
then you-
skated, thanks to James Comey and the DOJ.
Tom.
Then, well, this guy had to go to jail for a year, so Trump pardoned him, and he is one of the winners. My
Okay.
loser, American colleges and universities, for their continuing with their identity politics. The University
I
of
see.
Minnesota has hired a woman, Lisa Anderson Levy, to speak on a number of issues, including how the violence of whiteness. If you're white, you're prone to violence, and the whole world
Okay,
suffers
so that's
because
your
of us white
loser
people.
or winner? What is that, loser or winner?
That's a loser.
Okay. The good news. The Lamb won in Pennsylvania in a 21% Trump district. I think that was wonderful news. The bad news, according to Trump, and what he's going to be worried about from here on in, North and South Korea talking and getting friendly. He doesn't want to see that happen. And we as a country probably don't want to see it happen.
Trump doesn't want to see that
No,
happen.
nobody really does in our country. That brings people together. What is Raytheon going to do if they don't have to supply missiles to South Korea to shoot down potential missiles coming out of North Korea? I just asked that in passing.
Well, my son-in-law works for that program, and he
right.
sells a lot of them to Japan, and
Yeah,
to Israel,
of course.
and
Good
several other
business.
places.
Good business.
Yeah.
The losers, born-again Trump supporters. Another mulligan given for Stormy Daniels. By the way, this is going to be on, CBS on Sunday night. Stormy Daniels is going to tell on.
You gonna
She's
tune in?
got pictures and films. I love this woman. Anyway, I mean, you guys would, I can only imagine if Obama had gone somewhere and bought a vanilla ice cream cone, he would have been attacked by you forever and a day. 57 states. Oh, what a terrible mistake. He's dumber than Palin. I remember those comments. I got the quotes at home. Winners, Trump's staff that's been able to quit. I mean, these people are running
The
from-
winners of Trump staff
Yeah,
will
absolutely,
quit.
because you know something? They stick around. He's going to be the only guy in that White House pretty soon from the look of it. Personal assistant the other day. His personal assistant. Now, wait a minute. Just take this back a step. Just think if this had happened to Obama. His personal assistant walked out of the White House under guard, doesn't even get a chance to go back and get his jacket. Oh, my God. Can you imagine Breitbart if that had been, I bet it hasn't even been on Breitbart. Surely didn't make the news.
Wasn't he
on
doing
Fox.
some kind of criminal stuff?
He was a criminal. But, of course, not missing a beat, Trump then appoints him as a special assistant to his re-election campaign in 2020. This is a man who you admire.
I didn't say
Anyway, those are winners
that. I
and
never
losers.
said that. I said I don't like the man.
I want you
but
to
I
say you
like
hate
his
him.
policies, and that's why I vote for somebody.
All right.
Okay, the biggest news story in the year, in over a year.
Whose
the
news
number
story
one,
is this?
Overwhelming.
Yeah.
You don't. You, if you can't guess, I'll tell you.
All right.
It is the alleged Russian Trump collusion
I
in
see.
the election, okay?
Yeah.
This is something that mainstream media has focused on above all else.
Any media.
Okay,
Tom.
so the House Intelligence Committee released its report the other day,
Yeah.
and the report said no evidence
Right.
of collusion
None. No
between
collusion.
Russia and the Trump
Yeah.
administration, okay? Guess how much attention it got on NBC? Nothing. They did not even cover it. ABC, 27 seconds. CBS, 31 seconds. All three of the alphabet networks, after focusing for
lot on
over a
MSNBC.
year, for thousands of hours on it,
yeah.
when this report comes out, less than 1 minute
Yeah.
of coverage.
And that's all it deserved in real world.
Oh, God. Because it's not the outcome you want.
No, it's not the
It's
outcome
not the
that's
outcome
true.
that you have staked everything on. And you say to
Tom.
me, Tom, when this evidence finally comes out, will you believe it? And I say, Gino, there is no evidence.
not the
there
end of
never
the
has
story.
been any evidence in spite
Tom.
of all this attention and all this investigation they have come up with. Nada.
Now-
And you keep saying,
Can
if
I-
we only just
can I
keep
reply to
looking,
this?
then we will find it.
Can I reply to your
Okay,
statement?
go ahead.
The Noons Committee. Now, don't remember, this is high noons. Who at midnight went to the White House, to get some papers, come back the next day and explain to the public what was going on. Okay. The other thing he did, Noons released a report under seal from the group, the Republicans on that committee, explaining how everything was hunky dory and nothing happened.
The memo.
This thing they released the other
None of the
night.
Democrats did.
This thing they released the other night. No collusion. How would they know? Anyone that came in that had any kind of information at all, they were either weren't under oath or they didn't. They decided not to answer. They didn't issue subpoenas to anybody when they lied or didn't say anything. I mean, how can you call that a good report? I mean, even an odd
You don't
right
like
winger.
it's not a good report to you because it didn't come to
No.
the conclusion that you would have liked.
No, but they didn't follow any procedure that would have given them a report that
It
you
wasn't
could
part
believe.
of the report, but Nunez, in an interview afterwards, said that there were, however, clear links between the Clinton campaign
Of
and the Russians.
course. Of course.
And the dossier, the Christopher Steele dossier, is evidence. It is the actual evidence of collusion between Clinton and the Russians,
I think so far.
paid for by the Democrats.
Okay. Now today, Donald did say something yesterday about the poisoning of those two people in England. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Now we got a problem where when Mr. Putin doesn't like the way someone's behaved, maybe even 15 or 20 years ago, he'll send his agents out to poison them. What are you going to start believing if they start poisoning people in this country? Are you going to then say, we got a problem with Mr. Putin?
There's a problem with Mr. Putin. He
There
does
is. It's a
assassinate
sin.
people, especially media people, who write articles
Yeah.
critical of him and then leave the country, and then he ends up having them snuffed in Monaco or in London and several.
I watched
He's been doing
something
this
about
for years.
Stalin.
Yes.
Stalin the other night when Stalin was in power after Lenin died. Trotsky was second guy. He was leading. He disagreed.
Ice pick in the air, Mexico City.
Went to Mexico City in 1940 or 41. He was living there, and he got an ice pick in the head, and
He
they
went there
killed him.
earlier than that, and then
They
he
killed
was
him.
killed around that time.
And
yes.
a lot of people that have a disagreement with Mr. Putin have died in rather
That's right,
strange
they
fashion.
have.
Some
Very
guy in
similar.
Washington about 8 months ago was pushed out of a window. I don't know what happened to him.
Yep.
But this stuff is going on. But you know something else? A guy left the White House the other day. Johnny McIntyre.
That's a new name on me.
He was a special assistant in the White House for Trump. I think that was the guy they made him leave his coat behind. Johnny McIntyre.
The one you talked about
Yeah,
earlier.
I talked about. I just found my note on it. Yeah, but it was kind of interesting the way they kicked him out. I'm like,
He was He was the body man. What does that mean?
he handled all the anything the president might need a roll of Tums. I mean, something. You want a can of soup? They would arrange. They would get it. And he just said they would go for, basically. Trump says he's had the best cabinet ever. You sat and watched that thing when they all sat there and said, "Mr. Trump, you're the best president there ever was." You sat
You
and watched.
referred to that. I didn't watch that.
You gotta find it somewhere. I know it's on the web.
Okay. We'll
You want to
probably
do number
haven't
two?
got very much time.
You
Let's
do
do
two.
this
I don't know how
one.
much time we got. We started late
Is
today.
there a potential presidential candidate from either party that you feel could help heal the political divide in this country?
I think he might be too old at the time. And I wish he had run 2 years ago. I think Joe Biden, probably with his past, his background, his history, although I disagree with him, allowing Judge Thomas to go on the Supreme Court, I think he'd make a good president. And I think he could be middle of the road and more or less good to all people. I think he'd be a guy. I don't see anybody on the Republican side that, if they're all agreeing with Trump all the way, that they're going to go down with Trump.
It would be unusual for, where he has already announced that he's going to run for re-election, for somebody to come out and within the party and challenge the incumbent. I mean, Ted Kennedy did that with Jimmy Carter. Pat Buchanan did it with George W. Bush.
Kennedy did
George
it with
H.W. Bush. Kennedy did it with Jimmy Carter.
Reagan did it with Ford.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, okay. Well,
I mean,
Ford
it
was
happens.
sort of an incumbent.
Yeah, but it happens.
Okay.
Yeah, he was president.
So it is unusual, but might it happen? Oof.
Oh, he'd be so
Who's
easy
the
to
Nebraska senator? He has an unusual name. Oh gosh.
They all have a little four-letter names.
He doesn't like Trump very much. He was a never Trumper. He's a pretty sharp guy. He's a conservative Republican. He comes across well. Gosh, why can't I think of his name?
It's hard to get a guy from the middle of the country to win.
But I don't think he's not. Do I think he's going to run? I have no idea. I doubt it.
Trump, I really,
a lot can happen between now and 2018. Right now, 2018 doesn't look good for the Republicans. After yesterday's election results, after Alabama,
but
here's what concerns me the most. There's like Trump, his economy, the deregulation and his tax cuts and so forth have stimulated the economy pretty well. And for a while, there were people projecting 5% growth for the first quarter. However, I just saw some reports just yesterday, two links, and one was to a Federal Reserve bank somewhere in the country, and another, I forget the other one, was an economic advisor saying, now we're scaling that way back, and it looks like only 2% growth or even 1.8% growth for the first quarter of 2018. So
Obama was at like 2.2
so if that's
or
the
2.3.
case, if that happens, and if the economy, which is Trump's biggest success so far, at least perceived success, doesn't pan out, then that doesn't look good for 2018.
One of the things
Doesn't look good.
I think you're right about that. I think the economy, because of the trillions of dollars that now they've worked out of the tax structure, away from the rich, back into their pockets, which may or may not be a good thing. But when you do that, you can't pay the things you've got with the current level, the future level of income. You can't pay the things we have to pay. So I think, okay, we get 2 minutes. So the thing is, I think you could be very right that if that 2%,
it doesn't look good.
Yeah,
if
we
that
know
happens.
because, well, look, we're losing companies. I mean, look at the motorcycle company there the other day.
Harley Davidson
closing a big. He was just bragging about it a few months ago.
Yeah, but
he tends to shoot from the hip or the lip. Okay, what he does, he says something based on Carrier air conditioning in Wilmington or somewhere, hiring 35 people, and isn't that wonderful? And the world is now changed for the better.
That was planned during his campaign. Yeah.
You know what will happen if he puts through these tariffs, which he won't do.
He already did.
No, he didn't do it. Yeah, but who did he hit?
He could exempt people.
He exempted. He exempted our two biggest suppliers.
Yeah.
I mean, you go down the list.
I didn't know he could do that by the stroke of a pen because a tariff is a tax.
Yeah.
It is a tax, as
know,
Larry Kudlow pointed out in his article a few weeks ago.
But
it's a tax. But I know constitutionally, the Congress has the power to tax exclusively.
Not the president.
Not the president. So how does the president do this?
I think the man
I'm
is just
suspect
unhinged.
about this. I don't know.
I think he's unhinged because if you don't deal, ask the people that should know. At least sit down in a meeting and discuss these things before you make those kind of shoot from the hip
Well, I think
lip
he has.
decisions. Oh, no. I don't even think his Cohen knew what he was doing. I don't think any of them.
Cohen knew. He did.
Look,
it came out. Cohen didn't like it. Never has. And,
when Tillerson went to South Korea 5-6 months ago, and he was over there, he was talking about not dealing too close.
That was a quick 2 minutes. We got to wrap it up. All right, so-
Anyway, I want to just tell you, Larry Kudlow, by the way, he's a recovering cocaine addict.
Yeah.
Just to let you know.
Yeah,
All during the 90s,
he
he was a
acknowledged
cokehead.
it. Okay.
He should have plenty now.
All right,
Okay.
folks. See you in just before April Fool's Day.
Yeah, and we'll
2
be
weeks.
here. We'll be here. Have a nice St. Patrick's Day. Don't eat too much corned beef and cabbage.